Hi, thanks for coming back. I hope you've gotten yourself comfortable doing the knit stitch. The next and only other stitch in knitting is a purl stitch. Today we're going to look at how that's done and how to combine the two knit and purl together. The purl stitch is very similar to the knit stitch, except that we're holding the yarn in front of our work instead of in back. And you're going to come through the stitch from the back to the front towards that yarn that's held in the front. If you're knitting, remember we went to the back. This is purling. We're going to go to the front. So we're going to come in that stitch on the left needle from front to back, make the same X we did before, wrap the yarn counterclockwise, back that right needle down, holding tension on that yarn until we can take that new baby stitch to the back, move our right needle up, and take that first stitch off. Let's do another stitch. So, holding tension on your yarn, come in the stitch to the front, wrap it around counterclockwise, back that right needle out, and make that stitch. Here is how I hold my yarn when I knit continental. It's not necessarily important how you're doing it as long as you apply tension to that yarn. I'm going to pull that stitch down so it keeps the stitch on that right needle and take it off. Okay, let's do this English style. So I'm going to move the yarn to the right, holding it in my right hand, come in the stitch from back to front, making that X, wrapping the yarn around and holding it in my right hand. One of the advantages to knitting English style, as you can see, I'm wrapping, and because the yarn is coming off to the right side, that method of holding keeps the stitch on the needle, which is really nice. All right, here's another side by side. As I addressed in my knitting, it is not important which side you hold that yarn on, but that you're keeping tension and you find it comfortable for you. As you purl, I want you to pay attention to when you bring that needle tip through the stitch. You want to clear that back leg of the stitch on the left needle and make that new stitch come all the way through. Okay, one more time. When you wrap it around and bring that needle tip underneath, you can clear the stitches and make a nice clean new stitch. So when we're looking at the stitches on the needle, it looks like your purl stitch is wearing a pearl necklace, just that little bump underneath the stitch on the needle. As opposed to when you're making a knit stitch, remember we had a V, so here's a V underneath the stitch on the needle. When you look at the stitches lower down, you can see there's like a smile and a frown with purl stitches. The bumps work together, those are purl stitches. Now let's look at doing knits and purl stitches within the same row. You could do that with ribbing or seed stitch, any combination. It's important when you're doing this to remember that you have to bring the yarn in between the needles to change. So we do a purl stitch, and let's do 2 purl stitches. And then I'm going to move my yarn, watch between the needle tips to the back so I can knit. Remember, I have to go to the yarn to make the stitch. Knit 1, knit 2, I'm going to purl 2. I need to bring that yarn to the front. Now I'm going to set up to do continental knit and purl. I'm going to look at this next stitch. See how that's a V? I'm doing ribbing, so I want 2 more knits. I'm going to knit 1, 2, bring my yarn to the front, and I'm ready to do 2 purl stitches. Yarn to the back and do 2 knits. End the row with 2 purls. Very important to remember to move your yarn in between the needles when you switch from knits and purls within a row. Thanks so much for joining me. Keep practicing and happy stitching. See you next time.